A levy on cybersecurity refers to the tax or fee imposed on organizations or individuals to fund initiatives related to cybersecurity. This could include funding for cybersecurity awareness campaigns, research and development of new security technologies, training programs, or supporting organizations tasked with protecting infrastructure from cyber threats. Now, the rationale behind implementing a levy on cybersecurity is to ensure that sufficient resources are available to combat the increasing number of cyber threats and attacks. Now, by funding cybersecurity initiatives through a levy, government and organizations can better protect their crucial assets and infrastructure from cyber threats. It is important to note and to carefully consider the implications and potential challenges associated with imposing a levy on cybersecurity, such as determining the appropriate levy of a levy, ensuring transparency on how the funds are utilized, and avoiding potential negative impacts on businesses and consumers. Hello and welcome to Insight Today. I am Jumai Manson. I'm being joined by Prince Kelvin Fineface. He is a security and energy consultant, public good advocate. Don't touch that dial. The program continues shortly. Stay tuned. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is Inside Today on Global Television. Now, the rationale behind implementing a levy on cybersecurity, many Nigerians are wondering, what is this all about, with all the levies and deductions from various banks, and what are these levies being used for? Is it to promote infrastructure? Is it to curb the menace, which is cyber crime? Well, we'll just hope and see. But for now, the levy on cyber security is to ensure that sufficient resources are available to combat the increasing number of cyber threats and attacks. Now, by funding cybersecurity initiatives through a levy, government and organizations can better protect the critical assets and infrastructure from cyber threats. Well, that's food for thought, and we wonder how far can this go in the governance and administration in which we find ourselves. It's important to carefully consider the implications and potential challenges associated with imposing a levy on cybersecurity. A lot of Nigerians have complained concerning the deductions from their bank charges and wondering what it's used for, from taxes to so many taxes that are being tagged to these levies which are deducted from our bank charges. Now, determining the appropriate levy of these levies, ensuring transparency, is how and where are these funds being utilized, and avoiding potential negative impacts on businesses and consumers. And like I said, this is Inside Today, and I am joined by Prince Kevin Fineface. He is a security and energy consultant, public good advocate. Good afternoon, Mr. Kevin. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Fine. It's great to have you on the program. Thank you for joining in on the program in such short notice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate.
Foundation Wood.
All right, let's go straight to the issue on ground, talking about the levy on cybersecurity. Now, can you give an insight on what the levy on cybersecurity, what does this entail for individuals who are wondering, cybersecurity levy, how do they come together? How do you nip it in the bud?
Nip it. I think the thing is what I think Nigerians should be talking about is basically to begin to ask those questions that are necessary. What is this money meant to be used for? What plans and programs do they have on ground to use this, levies that are going to be collected? How did they arrive at this? If you remember, a few years back, the Cyber Security, Act was passed into law, and there was a public hearing for that. The challenge we have as a country that we have a very poor information dissemination, strategy. The National Orientation Agency is supposed to be one mouthpiece of the government that should educate the Nigerian public, but unfortunately, are failing in that responsibility. So it's until when something goes wrong, the Nigerian public gets to know what has gone wrong, they will begin to cry foul. When the laws are being debated upon, they don't get to know, or they get to hear but don't get to understand much that is expected. This whole law is not a new thing. If you look at the circular that was released, the circular, referenced a previous circular that was sent to the banks prior to the one that was sent to implement for 1st of May. And so it means that this thing has been ongoing for some time without proper checks. But now it's in the force. So what do we do? It means that for every transaction you will do, you're ready to be not only to part away with the 0.05% that was indicated, which is more like 0.5%, no, not 0.5, 0.5%, is that you have to pay a tax for that fee also. If you recall, currently, for every transaction you do with the banks, for every transfer that is done, bank to bank, interbank transaction, there's a particular fee that you pay, sometimes ranging from you pay about 25 naira, then you pay a tax of that 25 naira. If it is 50 naira, you also pay a tax of the 50 naira. So with this new levy, the cyber crime levy that is being put out there to boost up the funds for cyber security in order to be able to help with cyber crimes, you'll be paying 0.5%, and you will also pay a tax of that money because it's actually a transaction. So there will be a multiplicity of taxes that citizens will have to pay. So what it also simply means for businesses that for every transaction that must take place, that would be an inclusive fee. So if I need to buy something online and the online vendor said to me that is 250,000 naira, now includes, times 0.05%, it means that I will have to think if that value was worth spending online. Okay. So a lot of online business vendors likely going to lose the traction of their customer base because more people will now want to walk into the shop to buy these things, or will elect for buying these things without going through the formal processes.
Mm-hmm.
In Nigeria currently, there's been this person-to-person financial transaction that goes on, especially
Yes.
those who live in diaspora. They
Mm-hmm.
have these funds, they get somebody through WhatsApps, through Telegrams. They send money to one person, they send dollar to the other person. They do this exchange, person to person. They don't pay tax for it. The government now is also trying to look into that area to see that that can be stopped. Those ones that have been known to be officially being done can be stopped so that they'll be able to checkmate the rate at which the dollar gets to beat the naira silly without even thinking of how to increase or improve our export capacity so we can get more dollar directly. So, I mean, that's in a nutshell, those are the things to look at. Then you have to look at the fact that as citizens, there are so many things we are grappling with this new inflow of taxation. Then we're also looking at telecom tax coming up again, like the government has been, brandishing. Very soon that is going to come up because if they need to get the loan they want to have from the World Bank, then it means that telecom tax will have to come in. So the incoherency of government policies will, in the at the very, in some, not some degree, at the large extent, affect how we do business and how we relate and how the people generally get to live their lives and comfortably well.
All right. With all of these things, thank you for breaking it down to us, and for so many individuals who are wondering what this is all about. Now, let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages, if any. I know you spoke about the transactions will be limited. Some people would prefer to go into shops to buy their goods than make these transactions due to the levy. But can you just throw more light on advantages and more disadvantages, if we have any?
Well, that will be what the government will come and tell us in total. For my little understanding and the little research I've done, the whole idea of this cybercrime levy, it's simply to be able to have funds without recourse for budgetary provisions in the national budget to fight against cybercrime. But that's not how to go about it, because cyber crimes is not something that is done just like that. Do we have the infrastructure put in
Exactly.
place to be able to fight cyber crimes? Why is it that easy for it to be going on? If the bank comes out to tell you how much they lose annually to cyber crimes, a lot of people take their money out of the bank. I have been a victim of cyber crimes, and that is because we have a banking system that is not well regulated and properly supervised. Why do I say so? There's what they call KYC in the banking system, know your customer, which means there are basic things that are required for you to open an account. I can tell you for free, the major banks are culprits. The smaller banks are also culprits, that they do not necessarily follow the laid out um, plan for KYC. A lot of these banks have accounts opened with depositors that do not have full details of their biometrics, do not have addresses of where these customers live. Because I've had situations as a private investigator for myself and for a client where through the police, through a court order, it was requested to give us the KYC of a particular depositor who has been using that account to defraud people. And the banks couldn't bring any. They do not have. And I had calls to approach one of the banks, and what they said to me was that, this is how we do it. The customer is not supposed to have more than 50,000 naira. So we open this quickly for them so that they just use it to smaller. So they want to have more customers at the detriment of the general public, because what these criminals do is that they have their own collaborators in the bank. See, they have these people in the bank who work alongside with them. That's what we also find out from my investigation.
Okay.
There are some of these bank officials who are working in cahoots with these criminals.
Mm-hmm.
So they know when to strike, they know when to move the money as quick as possible. Once they get the money, they are quick to hide things quickly. And when you get a court order, you can't even access your money. You can't even access the accounts. Like I have cases at hand now currently that I see Since last year, we're still talking with two banks, Union Bank and GT Bank, because of cybercrime. And so when you now ask this, when you see this experience, you now ask yourself, do we have the infrastructure? The answer, we don't have the infrastructure. So what would these funds be used for? I think what the government needs to do is to clearly state out what this fund is designed for, how it to be dispensed, and how it to be audited.
All right,
There are a
Mr.
lot of
Mr.
funds that, yes.
Kevin, I want to ask a question. Now, this payment of these levies, do you think it's another way that they want to curb cyber fraudulent activities? Because this is something new. The bankers, they've never come out to tell us that there's this particular levy that we need to pay because of cyber security and all of that. They just deduct money from the account, and we're at a point, I think most Nigerians are tired of complaining, and most Nigerians, they just sit back and they say to themselves, well, that's what the banks, that's what they do nowadays, from 15 sometimes to 11,000, telling you that they are levies. But now with this coming out in full to say there is a levy, and of course it's for cyber security, do you think it's another way that they want to do better to reduce cyber fraudulent activities?
No, it's not. It's not another way. It's not that they want to do better. It's just another way for the drivers of these policies to enrich themselves. I can tell you for free, these monies will not be properly accounted for. Before you know what's happening, there will be embezzlement, there will be misappropriation, there will be some bogus contract that will be given just to legitimize the expenditure. We have so many funds that the government have actually created to take care of so many things. I'm sure you're aware we pay stamp duties, right?
Yes, we do.
For every transaction you do, you pay stamp
50
duties.
naira.
Yeah, 15 naira stamp duty. Have you been given a breakdown of that money for any year at all? No.
Never.
How is that money dispensed? None. The Nigerian public is entitled to know how that money is dispensed. How many of those banks successfully keep up to this? So when they want to do their audited accounts, there's always that kickback that, put everything, some things under the carpet, like we oftentimes will say. So it is not something that will get it better. It is something that will basically increase the level of financial misappropriation and corruption that is already endemic in the country. It's now like becoming something else. So what I think should be done, like I said earlier, that for every bank, there's supposed to be a serious cyber security architecture deployed that can also be simplified to synergize with other banks, so they have a joint, tax team to help to monitor their transactional relationships online 24/7 with the best hands.
Kevin, I want to interject. When you say all banks should have that synergy to come together to monitor transactions, there are some banking systems, like, I don't want to mention the bank, but it's an online banking system. It's very popular. And you cannot trace any transaction that goes into that online bank. I'm sure you know the banking system I'm talking about. My sister.
I don't want to assume, but if you give me a clue, then I'll be able to say, okay, yes, I know that.
Some of these online bankings, you know them. Most of these online bankings that we have, I don't want to mention them, but we know. When you see online banking, it's very common with Uber drivers and all of that. That's one of the banking systems that they use. And these criminals, they embark on that particular banking system because it's not traceable. I could recall on Inside Today, I mentioned when my sister's phone was snatched, and all the guy did was remove her SIM and cleared her account with all her money in there, using the SIM and transferring it into that online banking system.
Sorry about that. It's not like it's not traceable. It's not like it's not traceable. It is just that complicity makes it difficult to be traced because of complicity. Money have trails. See, money is not one invisible thing. Money have trails. It leaves behind the trails. And so when you follow the patterns, you can trace your money to wherever the money goes to. If you send 10,000 naira to one of those banks you kind of mention, you will notice that it has to go through the system. Because for that bank to be able to receive that money, it means it has a license. It means it must also have an auditor report at the end of the year to give to central bank to indicate what it has. And so the trace is what the government used to know what kind of tax to get from a particular bank. And so for that trace to not be there, it means that the bank is not supposed to be operating. So if they say they can't trace, it just simply means that they have compromised. They can trace. The right court order will give you the ability to get the information, but sometimes because of complicity, you cannot get what you like. I told you, we requested for KYC of accounts in Union Bank, in First Bank. I'm mentioning names so that they get to know. And they could not give us the KYC, even in Polaris Bank. They couldn't.
And please, let's not mention any banks on air, please. Let's just say
Okay, so
banks. You
I'm
don't have
just
to be
telling you
specific,
my
please.
experience. When he said I should not mention names, it makes it difficult for these people to be held accountable. That's why we have a problem. We're not advertising the banks, we're actually telling what's going on.
But let's just
Because
say
even the
banks
CBN,
if we
even the CBN
simplify.
is supposed to be monitoring, supervising these agencies. I have my reports, even in the CBN's office. None of them even called me to say, look, okay, we got your information, we have your report, your complaints, we're working on it. None. I sent a message, I went to their branch office, I didn't get any feedback. That's to tell the level of complicity as a country. So cyber security or cyber crime, whatever levy they're coming up with, is just another, Ponzi scheme to enrich a few persons who have propagated this idea. That's not the only thing. There are so many levies that are going to be coming up in this country because that's just one way to make the system get a few persons rich. And if you find out in even the educational sector, JAM collects money from you frequently from your kids. Every time you go use the USSD, you pay 50 naira. And when you want to get a result or get anything done on their website, there are payment platforms that sometimes you pay the money, you don't even get the service that you paid for. I'm not just making a serious allegation. I'm telling you experiences. So if you look at that's another cyber crime. When a service provider gives you a platform to make payments, after making payment you do not get the service, that's criminal acts because it's cyber crime, and there's no window for you to get a refund for services not rendered, like the case of JAM. A lot of parents have paid money that they not see the result they actually paid for, and they tell you, okay, write or send complaint, and you don't get respite. That is cyber crime. So will this money be used to also engage that? It's not only these boys who do 419 or Yahoo as they call them that are into cyber crime, or the ones who will take your data and transfer money from your account. Those ones. There are even government establishments that are also into cyber crime because
But
they provide
Mr.
services and you do online payment. They are difficult to
Kevin,
get your services and money you don't even get back.
Kevin, for some of these fraudsters, from my own research, I've made inquiries myself, and I asked few questions. I spoke to some bankers, and I said, how easy is it for these criminal elements to go into and hack into one's account? Without you, your phone is there, and the next thing you know, transactions are going out. And then the banker said to me, Jumai, there is an information you will give. These people cannot just go into your account and then take out all the money without you giving out, clicking. Maybe the individual must have clicked a link or giving out a vital information. That it's very hard for someone to just hack into one's bank statement. I don't know, you said you've had that experience, so it must have been maybe a link that you clicked, or maybe someone saw your PIN or knew your password.
Mine wasn't a link.
Something.
No, Jumai, mine wasn't a link. It was just a simple thing. Like I get a message from Jumai telling me there was an emergency situation. I needed to help with the situation, and because I know Jumai doesn't really necessarily ask for such kind of help, and this is more like an important thing, I decided to reach out financially as requested.
Yes.
The money goes to an account. And now this account that the money goes to does not have full KYC. There's no known address because you're supposed to have an address with utility bill indicating where you live. The bank couldn't provide it. They couldn't.
That's what the banker
Right?
said.
Because,
Something must happen. There
yes,
must be something. You
because,
must do
yeah, that's the
something. That is
thing.
why
There's
we
only
must be
something.
very
There are
careful.
also others that they send you bugs. You click on the bugs, you gain access to your data, your information, and use that
Of
information
course.
to be able to retrieve your information. That's what they call the swim swapping also. These things happen because the citizens are not well educated to
Very
understand
true.
the nitty-gritty of these technological uses. That's why I said we have very poor orientation. We are basically experiential people. When you are hurt, you are careful. Aside of that, there is the banks are supposed to even take it upon themselves to do cyber security education, to educate their customers and say, look, these are basic things we need to do. There are times you get links from the bank, but not necessarily the bank. It was just a copy link that indicates like looks like the bank. Except of course you know a bit about cyber crime, you fell victim for it. Same logo, same name, same everything. You think it's the same thing. You fall victim innocently. That you're seeing your bank sending you a message that your account has been blocked. That if you know that you have nothing to do, in, click on this link to rectify the account. And in panic, you click on the link because you're not well educated. Then it takes you to a page, you put your information, not knowing it's a mirroring website. It takes that information, now goes to the main account, signs in like yourself, now cleans your account. That also brings me to this point that banks are supposed to be monitoring 247 every account as things move based on the transaction because there are approval levels. When you click your app to transfer an amount, there's a level of approval. There's somebody in charge of that approval. They don't just release the money to you like that. It goes through an approval level. So why don't sometimes this bank, use their staff to call a customer? Are you aware of this transaction going on? We have seen unusual transaction in your account. Uh, Please confirm that you're the ones to allow for this to continue. That's what civilized banks do because they monitor their accounts. But in this case, they don't even do that. Also because of the fact that there's complicity. Some of these staff are part of the gang of thieves. Some of them are. We have seen confessional statements made by some of these bank staff and some of these criminals who have been caught by the security agencies. We've heard confessional statements from them that they have people in the bank who gives them information. So I'm not just making an allegation. I'm just making a statement of fact here. And so we have that. So we have that innocent victimization. We also have those who fall based on greed. There's no denying that fact. But the bottom line is that we need proper education in order to be able to avoid some of these things. So people get to know. Two, the banks need to let our customers know how to be communicated to, especially those who are not properly learned how to be communicated to. The customers need to know so as not to fall victim under panic. Then the government on that part need to do a comprehensive education through the National Registration Agency where they can, simplify these things into different languages to the understanding of the people, so the people get to know and become, sources of information to the government and the agencies of government and the banks to say, look, I'm seeing something like this, please check. How about calls to give information to the banks and even the police? And sometimes when I see things like this, I send information to the bank. This other account, is using this account to defraud people. I know what they will say to you in some of the banks that have done that. There's nothing we can do about it. That you just have to be careful.
Now,
I'm giving you
assuming
information telling you that this account holder is defrauding people. What it simply means is that you're supposed to take my information and say, okay, get your security department, investigation department to investigate that account and look at the trace of financial movement to now know what was the person's occupation when that person opened that account. Somebody tells you he's a student and you're seeing money going to his account every day and you don't have any reason for suspicion because the money is coming to your account. to your bank, and it will increase your inflow. That at the end, they make you look like your turnover is big, so you can make money from your shareholders. You kept mute and decided to not do anything about it. And you now say that it was the customer's fault for not doing the right thing. So those are some of the things, you know. By rights, your a customer's occupation will tell you the type of flow the customer should have. If you go through pattern tracing, a customer says a businessman, you want to be able to ask for the CSC registration. Then you look at his financials so that you know the inflows. Certainly, a customer that opened an account with 10,000 is getting 5 million, 10 million, 20 million in that account, and you don't have any reason to ask questions because the money is going to your bank. That's criminality, being aided. So those are some of the factors.
All right, Kevin, I want to ask a question. Now, for instance, what if this levy to curb cybersecurity is a step in the right direction? You have said it's for some people to fill up their pockets, but let's assume that it's a step in the right direction to actually curb this menace. In your own view as a security expert, in what ways can these levies actually curb cybercrimes if it was used in the right mode?
First thing first, we need to come to terms to know how they got to that amount, the 0.05% that they got to. How did they arrive at that? And what was the budgetary provisions that were made resulting to that amount as a basis? And how many accounts were they targeting? So let's look at it. We have about, if I'm not mistaken, more than 200, about 200 plus or more than 200 or less than 200. Let's say about 150 million active accounts running in the different banks. And so if you want to take 50 naira, for instance, times 150 million, that's how much? In a month, in a year, that's how much? So if you do that mathematics, you'll be shocked to realize that what I said earlier wasn't just a mere allegation or just speaking. So you do 150 million times 50, it gives you 7.5 billion in a month. And in a year, it gives you 90 billion naira. What would that be used for? What architecture are they putting in place? So let's see a budgeted provision in how to spend this money, projected that amount of money to be spent. So if you want to do a good cause, the first thing you want to do is to do needs assessments. Once you establish your needs assessment, the next stage that you want to go into your initiation process, you want to be able to now indicate how this can be done. So you draw a baseline. From your baseline, you have a timeline to say, this is what we're going to achieve X, Y, Z time based on this demand. So you look at the current realities of cyber crimes across the different banks and the nation generally. You now say you have 200 cyber crimes resulting to about 20 billion annually lost to cyber crimes. Okay, 20 billion. How much do we need to use to protect this 20 billion from not going out? So if we do a 1% of it, that gives us that much. That gives us about 200 million, right? If we do a 10%, that gives us about 2 billion. So let's work on these parameters. So we need 2 billion to protect, the loss of 20 billion. And so how do we disperse this 2 billion? What are the basic architectures that we need to put in place? And equipment, manpower, and other resources we need to put in place. That needs to be clearly spelled out. Once that is now done, the next thing you want to do is to now say, okay, let's go on orientation. Let's educate people. Let's make it difficult for the criminals to even have access to defrauding people or getting involved in cyber crimes. Why are there more people getting involved in cyber crimes? How do we get people to be more accountable? How do we make families to improve on their value system so as to be able to get the right morals? How do we get the people to be fully engaged? I told someone, I told some people today, I had the AEDC people visiting to come and check my meter. That when they finish doing what they need to do, I told them one simple thing. If we have consistent power, I have I'm generating my own personal power, 5 kilowatts of power with 6,400 watts of panel, generating that power. And I told them if we have constant power, crime rate across board will reduce by 65 to 70%. Because then you have more people gainfully employed and engaged and productively so. So they won't have time to think of how to be able to, want to do evil. Because the first law of life is survival. And so when there's nothing happening, there's no enabling ground, there's no power, there's difficulty everywhere. People think of the easy means because one, the family system, value system has broken, no morals. So they think of easy means. But when you have this thing put in place and it's properly done, guess what? Everybody's busy, productively so. People will find their passion and run through their passion. They'll make profit out of their passion. But if that is not put in place, that's not going to work. So asking me that question, how I think this can be done, is simple. I've explained it, outlined it. If the government wants, if the government is, they're actually sincere, that's what they would have done. But see, there are people who benefit from cures. So what they simply do, they approach government officials, then sell this idea to them, show them the benefit that will come to them, what they'll be getting from those deductions. Once they see what they'll be getting, the next thing they do, they approve those policies at the detriment of the community of the people. So as a public good advocate, I take my time to look at things like this and find ways which we can see social benefits.
Exactly.
And fight against anything that undermines that.
All right.
And this is one of those things that undermines benefits.
All right. I know you've spoken on this before.
Productive. There is nothing productive with this new level that's going to be introduced. With the tax
Okay,
level that's
like
going
I
to be
said,
introduced.
Kevin, let us just assume that it's for the benefit of Nigerians and it's going to move the cyber security forward. I know you've mentioned and you've emphasized on this particular question, but I really need you to emphasize more in the light of let's assume that it's for the benefit to curb cyber insecurity. Now, can payment of these levies safeguard our cyberspace without any infiltration of criminal elements? Let's say the fraudsters, the Yahoo and the likes. Do you think so?
No. The answer is no. If you ask me to assume, that's also not a good thing. Because assumption is the thief of faith. Assumption is part of what has made us to be where we are today as a
Okay, in your own opinion as a security expert.
That's what I'm saying. That in security, there's nothing like assumption. You don't assume. You have to put your concerted measures put in place. This cyber security levy will not stop cyber crime in any way because it's in itself cyber crime. It's like, saying this adage they will say in Nigeria, if you give the yam the goat to keep, you will not eat the yam. Who says? Don't feed the goat grass and things that will satisfy that goat. The goat will eat the yam. Without thinking twice. If that's the only thing that's available for the goat, and he said for safekeeping, the goat will eat that yam. So telling me that cyber security levy will help fight cyber crime is laughable. It won't. To fight cyber crime is simple. Every bank needs to be able to put the right thing because they make so much profit from our monies that have been deposited with them. They make so much profit and gives us little. Need to have their own, which they do. They need to have their own cyber security. All they need to do is to be able to pay well, so that the thief will not steal. Do you get? The people you are calling to come and protect you are thieves themselves. But now, because you're paying them well, they want to be seen as responsible people. Hackers, ethical hackers. They have the ethical hackers and non-ethical hackers, right? The ethical hackers are the ones who protect you from the non-ethical hackers. What job are they doing? They do the same job. One has recognition and decide to want to stay responsible. The other one doesn't have recognition and decide to go rogue. That's what the simple thing is. The simple thing is. A lot of the time, why in the first place, let me ask this question, why in the first place, as an institution, you put an IT infrastructure without putting considerable amounts of resources and manpower to protect that IT infrastructure? Why must you even have such kind of victimhood as a result of the negligence of the banks or the system? Why do we have a national IT gateway that is not properly monitored, that doesn't have the right security architecture? Why do we have systems that in the country that do not go through our standard, they have the right ISO certification, and that is in the market. Why do Nigerians just buy systems without getting to know that these systems are not really good for the country? Why do we have companies operating in the country that constantly have access to our data, utilize those data against us? Are you aware that as we speak currently, for every conversation we have on our phone is recorded? For every call you make text message you make, every data usage are all recorded. For 118 months, 118 months rather, you have these things recorded. I mean, for 118 for 18 months, that's 1 year 6 months. It's there. 18 months is recorded, and they have access to these things. So if these are the issues, why don't you have synthesizers that can look at these conversations, be able to know, okay, this is what is going on in this particular area with this conversation. Oh, it means it's going to break, invade into other people's privacy. But how do you get security? Security is basically a concentric measure put in place to safeguard, to protect, and to inhibit. So if it's a concentric measure, what are the measures to put in place that we're all going to agree to ensure that we have these things properly being safeguarded? So the banks do not need to have this infrastructure put in place without necessarily having the right security architecture put in place. So if you want to make online banking, then you also know that you need to be able to put the right architecture put in place to not only protect your money, also to protect the depositor's money. So as the money is leaving your vote to the depositors, understanding, it's protected. And that's why you see the banks, if they want to put money in ATMs, what they simply do, they use their bullion vans, they attach security to the bullion vans and transport the money. Why don't they allow the bullion vans to go through and put the money like that? Because they know if the bullion vans leave without security, there's a tendency for external aggressor to come attack, or there's also a tendency for internal aggressor to do what they need to. So they put security. Even though they have a bank official that will follow them, but they still put security. So why are they not monitoring our money like that when it moves from one account to another account and ensure that it's the person that owns the account that is sending the money? It's doable. So the levy would have been a good idea where in place they are putting the infrastructure and begin to think of ways to sustain it. So you come to Nigerians and tell Nigerians, these are our challenges. These are the things we have done as a mitigating point, and this is where we need your help. Then Nigerians will look at it. They're okay, this is a fantastic thing you're doing. We will encourage you. Then we can now decide on an amount that can be used for that purpose. You have education tax you're paying on one side as a company. You have what do you call it? Pencom tax you're paying on another side. You have multiple taxes you're paying. The consumer at the end of the day pays for everybody. And the consumer that does not have anything doing is of the worst eats. So, do you mind? Look, you see this thing? It's not the best thing for the government. They want to raise more cash. Simple. Okay. Yes, they want to raise more cash. But there are other ways to do it.
All right, Kevin. We'll
just said before, if every Nigerian with every active telecom line, let me allow this thought, please. If every active telecom line deposits 100 naira every month, do you know what that is? 180 million active telephone lines going to 200 million. Do you know what that is? That's almost 20 billion every month. What do you think will happen if that is done in a manner that can be properly monitored and well distributed? I'll leave it at that.
At about this point, looking at the Nigerians who are burdened with all of these taxes, now adding this, isn't this going to be more expenses when you come to these levies of cybersecurity? But that will be another discussion for another day. I just want to appreciate you for being a part of Insight today. Thank you so much for being a part of the program despite the short notice. And yes, Prince Kevin Fineface, he is a security and energy consultant, public good advocate. Thank you so much for being a part of Insight today.
My pleasure. Have a blessed day.
And with that, I will be wrapping up the program Insight today. Hope you've learned a lot. And do not forget, talking about the levy for cybersecurity, it is important to carefully consider the implications and potentials, the challenges associated with imposing a levy on cyber security, such as determining the appropriate levy of, and of course ensuring transparency, which we all want to know where these funds are being utilized, and avoiding potential negative impacts on businesses and consumers. Thank you all so much for being a part of Insight today. Join me same time tomorrow, the part 2 of the program when it comes to the levies on our cyber security. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you so much for being there. Bye-bye.